Hello, and welcome to Coffee with Kass. And today we are talking about what is exactly 7 steps and how can that really change your life. And 7 steps is an explosion. It's a book, 7 Steps to Flawless Communication, that came out about 4 years ago, exactly 4 years ago, in November of 2016. And it came out of me in about 2 months from beginning to end. And it's a very small little book, and it's basically an introduction, an invitation to become the guru of communication that you truly are. And based on the book, or starting with the book, I've developed some workshops on communication that really invite people to discover what it is that they know about communication, how to communicate, how to receive communication from others that they may not be accessing at the moment. I put the book out and it's been traveling. It's been on a journey, and there is a 7 steps journey that begins with really connecting to who you are and what your particular brand of magic is. And so many people talk about difficulty with communication, talk about their desire to communicate better with people, their desire to be understood, to have people receive them, and to have more ease when receiving other people and understanding other people. And this is also in our personal lives, our relationship with ourselves, with our body, with our life, with our approach to life. This is communicating with other people, our family, our mates, our friends, our children, our animals, right? And also communicating with large groups. It might be a group that you work with. You might be a speaker, you might be a singer, you might just go on the metropolitan on the subway, right? And it isn't always comfortable for people to communicate. And one of the things that I recognized about communicating is that so many people are not really connected with themselves. They're not really acknowledging, right, what they can be and do that will be an invitation for others to see them. So many people are disconnected from themselves. They're trying to be someone else. They're trying to accomplish something that isn't really what would make them happy and enjoying life. So, one of the main things that the 7 steps classes invite you to is to connect with who you are, what's important to you, what you would like to get out of your life. You know, when you're approaching life in that way, when you're approaching communication in that way, then there's something that you are being, that you're communicating with others, that's really quite authentic. And authentic, what does that mean exactly? It means that it's unique to you. There's so much more that unites us with others than separates us with others. But if we're not being ourselves, we're not using a direct line of communication, which is something that when you're connecting directly with people, whether it's on a video like we're doing now, whether it's on the phone, whether it's through a letter or a blog post, or whether it's through a smile as you pass someone on the street, when you're connected with you, there is a direct line of connection that you have with other people. That for me is something that has always been easy, right? And so in writing this little booklet and in doing the classes, it's something that when other people see it, they perceive it, they feel it, and it connects with them. And the 7 Steps program allows you to really exercise that in quite a different way. I've been doing for now 4 years workshops with 7 Steps communication. However, I've been communicating as we all have all of our lives. The moment we come out, we're like, we're communicating, right? Oh my God, what am I doing out here, right? What am I doing? I was so comfortable and warm inside the belly. What am I doing out here, you know? And even beyond words, because the first language is really energy. And so we all have this sixth sense, this intuition, this really intuitive capacity to know when we're connected, you know? And if you've ever felt as though you were not connected, if you ever had the feeling that, I'm not feeling comfortable, you would not be able to have that feeling if you didn't have an idea of what being comfortable was. And we've all had that at some point in our lives, even if it was just the moment we were born. So reconnecting to you, right, and establishing that true connection, which is thanks to you being in a body, being on this planet, and being able to access what you desire out of communication is something that we all are capable of. And the way the 7 Steps invite you to that is very, very easy. It's about step by step getting connected with you, recognizing what's different about you, what's unique about you. What is it that you do in a way that no one else does? You know, even talking. You know, once I was co-facilitating a workshop with a friend of mine, and it was hysterical. It was so funny because we started imitating one another, you know, and a lot of times we don't recognize who we are, how we communicate. So she was imitating me, and I was imitating her, and we were able to see ourselves in one another, right? And that's something that we're all capable of. You're turning on your light, you're igniting your magic, you're being present with you. When you do that, you tune in to other people, you allow them to tune into you as well. And you're able to see what's unique about them. I make a joke, sort of, but it's quite true that everyone has something that is unique and interesting about them. Even the most boring person that you've ever met, how hard do they have to work to be boring, to hide what's unique about them? The moment you step out of bed in the morning and take a shower, brush your teeth, fix a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, have a glass of water, you've already accumulated a series of experiences that make your particular day different and unique. So cutting off that and walking in the footsteps of someone else is a job that's already taken, really. Everyone else is being them just fine. They don't need you to imitate them. They don't need you to try and be like them. Sure, we might have people that we look up to, that we inspire to create something similar. But the way you create it, the way you go about it, your particular approach to achieving and accomplishing things in life is quite different and unique. And if we're willing to recognize that, then we really feel quite comfortable in our own skin. You know, we realize that we can never be wrong. You can never get you wrong because you are the best version of you that exists on this planet. And there may be things that you're not comfortable with. There may be different energies, different ways that you do things that you're not comfortable with. But usually, when you're going into judgment of you or doubting yourself, it's because you are trying to compare you to something or someone else, right? So, my question, one of the questions I'd like to ask you is, what is it, right, that you do that comes so easily to you, that is so fun for you, or so relaxing for you, or so important and vital to you, right? That you don't even consider it to be unique. You don't even consider it to be different. You don't even consider it to be of value because it's naturally who you are. What is that for you? So if you're listening and you'd like to write it down, I would suggest that over the next few days, you ask yourself that question and see what pops up. It might be I can be crankier than anyone else, or I can be more rude than anyone else. It might be something that you have judged as not a value or not an attribute, but a defect. However, how many of those things that we've identified as defects or not being enough of or being too much of are actually our unique brand of magic, our unique way of being, right? And if you were not trying to compare it to what other people have determined as the right way to be or the perfect way to communicate, what is the uniqueness, the authenticity, the uh, exact persona of you that you would be able to recognize? So that's just one of the questions that I'd like to ask you to play with. And recognizing that we have chosen, all of us, to be here, still alive on this planet. Lots of people are not choosing to stay here. Lots of people are choosing to transition, to die, to, you know, go away. But we're choosing to be here. So our energy is existing on this planet. And therefore, we are part of this earth, of this reality, of this world. And if we're not being ourselves, A, who are we being? Right? And that's a great question you can ask yourself. If you're not feeling comfortable in a certain moment, you can ask yourself, who am I being right now? Right? Who am I? Am I being myself? Am I being me? Right? And if you're not being you, is that not only uncomfortable for you, but is that uncomfortable for other people? So when you perceive that other people aren't getting you, aren't connecting with you, aren't communicating with you, right? Is it because you're not actually in connection with you? You know? And I used to think that everyone, if they're not understanding me or if they're not getting me, it must be because I'm not explaining myself well. Right? Has that ever happened that you try to explain yourself again, right? And again and again and again, right? If you are truly connected with you, then it's not about other people understanding you. It's about other people actually recognizing what's different and unique about you, right? They may not be able to receive it or get it right away. Right? But that doesn't mean you have to change who you are. Perhaps it's just a different approach that you can take when communicating with others. And this is what the 7 steps really invites you to do, to recognize what your intuitive, right? Your intuition, what your intuitive capacities can tell you about how to communicate with other people. Okay. A lot of us ignore that about ourselves. We are not uh, in our bodies. Have you ever met anybody? When you're talking to them, you get distracted or you get bored or you get, you go away in your mind. Oftentimes, that's not you. That's you picking up on what they're doing, that they're not actually present. So, what the 7 steps does invite you to do is to be present in your life, be present in all of your communication, so that you actually invite others not to be bored or distracted or annoyed, but you invite others to be present as well. And when you are connected with you and present physically in your body, right? A lot of us sort of go off on a daydream sometimes or talk only from our heads, right? True communication is not just from your head, it's also from your heart, and your heart is something you have in common with other people, because if they're alive, they all have a heart, you know? And so listening to your heart, listening to your body, talking to your body, and making sure that you are connected with your body, you will have lots of intuitive capacities to know when someone is connecting with you and when someone is not connecting with you. A lot of times that non-connection has to do with barriers, right? People have up a lot of barriers, a lot of points of view, a lot of resistance, a lot of defense posture, If you're willing not to be defensive, if you're willing not to have up barriers, right, then you are an invitation to others to lower their barriers. You cannot do that if you're not connected with you. You cannot do that if you're trying to be someone else. You can only do that when you are recognizing your magic, being comfortable in your own skin, connected with your body. Then the barriers don't exist, because that's not who we are. We're not barriers. That's what we put on, right? Just like the certain faces that we put on, right? To try and pretend or to try and come across as someone else, People are reacting to that often. They're not reacting to you, right? So once you are connected with who you are and acknowledge who you are not, when you are not being you, when you have up barriers, when you're putting on masks, when you're hiding behind a wall or a veil, right? You have the choice to reconnect with people from a totally different space, right? From the space of, I'm willing to be present and to approach this communication in whatever way is required in order for us to connect. And we play a lot with this in the workshops, the 7 steps workshops, the 2-day classes, and also the 1-day prelude class, or even the introduction, playing with and seeing how easy it is to identify who you truly are and invite others to see you. That reconnecting from that space is something that doesn't exist so much in this reality. Most people are sort of talking behind a wall or are sort of speaking about things that don't really matter to them, or in a way that isn't really representing the energy and the space that they are. Lots of people communicate from their heads. I mean, even science tells us that we've probably reached about 10% of our capacities when we're communicating from our heads. But how much more are we that goes way beyond that 10%? In fact, our capacity to engage with not only people, but with everything around us, with information that we may have from information we've read, from intuition that we have, from what we know about communication that we're not even willing to know, that allows us to approach communication in a very, very different way, depending on the person we're talking to, depending on what pops up for us. Not that we think of in sort of structure, but what pops up for us. Has it ever happened to you that's shown up for you that something pops into your head and you start talking about it, and someone you're talking to says, wow, it's so interesting that you're mentioning that to me because today I was just thinking about that, right? That is our brain, our body, our intuition, our consciousness, our ability, right, to tap into the various energies and streams of consciousness that are available to us. That's who we are, you know? And so when you're not contracted, when you're not trying to be someone else, when you're not trying to think of what to say, and you're actually allowing all the information, all of the molecules in the universe, all of the awareness that you have to contribute to your communication becomes flawless because there is nothing that you are putting on top of your knowing, your awareness, and your capacity to engage with people, engage with animals, engage with everything and everyone around you in order to move forward with communication. And how we do that and how to play with that is so much fun. So, how serious have we taken communication that we're not able to play with it, right? And what if you were willing, right, to say the wrong thing? How often has it happened that you've said something that wasn't exactly what you wanted to say, but it just came out and it creates something greater? Perhaps you didn't recognize it because you go into judgment or guilt or thinking, right? But if you're staying present, you get that there are actually no mistakes in communication. There are only possibilities for more when you communicate with someone. And if you're willing to do whatever it takes, right, to be the great communicator that you are, you're willing also to recognize that whatever shows up, there's always a good reason for it. And there's always something you could learn from it. And then this guy, famous Italian guy, who said, I never lose. I either win or I learn something. So what if what you consider an error in communication were a perfect opportunity for you to learn something different? Wow, I don't think that I will choose to say that again. Or wow, maybe I could say that in a different way the next time, right? If you don't step out and if you're not willing to take risks in your communication, then it will bore you and you will not be expanding your awareness, you're expanding your zone. And so being willing to play and engage with other people in different ways to see how much fun you can have being the communication guru you are is something that allows your communication to be flawless, right? And there's something about the fact that we all have so much in common. I mean, we all have molecules running around in our body. We all have water running around in our body. We all have the same space between the molecules in our body that exists in everyone else, right? And we all happen to be living in the same home, right? Now, your what you call home may be a house, maybe an apartment, maybe a trailer, right? If you're a fish, it may be the sea, right? But all of that is on this planet. And that's something we all have in common. And if you recognize that your home is everyone else's home and everything else that you see on this planet, or even feel, right? Sometimes we're connected with angels and entities and, our great grandparents. And I know lots of different cultures that include in their monthly reunions ancestors, the energy of ancestors. But those energies are all here on the planet. And this is your home. So when you begin connecting with you, right, which is sort of phase one of the 7 steps. B, recognize what's not you, the barriers, the masks, right? C, reconnect from that authentic space of who you are with people, willing to receive information from everything they say, everything you intuitively pick up on. And D, recognize that you have something in common with everyone. You might have a smaller nose, you might have only one eye, you might have, 11 fingers instead of 10, right? There's something different about all of us. You might have long hair, short hair, no arms, right? A lot of us don't have all of our limbs still, right? You might have grown up in Asia or in Africa or in America or in Europe, you know? But all of that is still here on this planet. So there's no way that you are a foreigner or that you don't have the same language that other people do or that you can't understand them. Because if you start from the basics, and that's really the invitation that the 7 steps is, if you start from the basics, you, your body, your heart, your difference, right? And continue with the basics of this connection we have, then functioning from that space, there's something so different and so delicious about the way you engage with other people that it makes them want to be with you, want to buy something from you. You might be selling the exact same product or service that someone else is, but somehow yours is more inviting because there's something that makes them feel at home. And what is that something? That's you. That is you. So, what is it that you would like to improve or acknowledge with your communication? That if you're willing to see what's unique and different about you, if you're willing to recognize what's unique and different about others, and if you're willing to communicate from that space, right, then everything and everyone is interesting, right? What can you invite others to communicate? How can you invite others to communicate if you are willing to be that from there. So with the 7 steps, we have intro uh, evenings or presentations even that invite people to play, invite people to loosen up, invite people to get in contact with themselves, and invite them also to see how often we're not being ourselves and to play with it, not to judge it, but to have fun with it. A lot of times we've been abused emotionally, physically. People have judged us, um, and people have denied us, right? How often are we abusing ourselves, denying ourselves, and judging ourselves, right, for not being like others? Don't worry about being like anyone else because that job's already taken. As I said before, they're already being like them. What if you were willing to be more like you? Are you willing to discover that, what that is, without any judgment, just with a curiosity and an interest and an inspiration to be that invitation also to others? So it's an approach to communication which is quite unique because it's not only about communicating with others, it's also about communicating with you, you know, and being willing to have an approach to yourself that is without barriers, without pretense. That's what the mask and the veil is, without hiding, and with a little play and a little fun, you know. So, one of the questions I'd like to ask you, just to invite you to play with that communication, is what is the joke that you could tell yourself that is an intimate joke between you and you that would allow you to laugh, that would allow you to giggle, that would allow you to sort of smile from within, that would allow you to be that relaxed, easy version of you? What is that joke? You know, sometimes it might be a joke about how much you're willing to eat or drink or do exercises or, you know, climb a tree or be cranky. Judgment about you doesn't allow others to be in direct contact with you. So if you'd like to know more about your authentic communication and your capacity to not only communicate with you, but also to connect with others, grab a 7 steps book, come and watch some of the videos that are on YouTube, come to an intro evening, come to a 2-day explosion class, and learn who you truly are and what's possible when you're really being you. You can actually change the world. Yeah. If you knew that your communication was always perfect, what would you choose to create in your life? Hope to see you somewhere around the world or online with one of these amazing workshops. Thank you so much. Bye bye.